We've been trying to empower our viewers to stand up and say no to left-wing crazy people. I don't think I'm talking out of turn when I say that this country has been, well, they've seen an alarming number of stupid policies and political movements in the last decade. These movements make no sense if one has the preservation of American liberty, security, and prosperity as their guiding light. But if one's goal is slavery, chaos, and poverty, all of these leftist policies and movements make perfect sense. Woke only makes sense to those who wish to destroy Western civilization. That's our observation in today's preamble. The left has set on attacking gas stoves. Most call this silly, but at bottom, the left is attacking a plentiful, cheap, and clean energy source because it means freedom and prosperity for Americans. Now, those are things Democrats do not support. From the big issues like Joe Biden's unsecured Democrat border to the small issues, the battle against unscientific pronouns, the goal is the same. Demand and get your unconditional surrender. China-sponsored fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for American adults. Over 110,000 Americans died last year alone from this poison getting easy access to our people, courtesy of Joe Biden's unsecured Democrat border. China is getting rich. Americans are dying at an alarming rate, and the narco-terrorists are making money, well, more money than they ever have. Why? Because China, Joe Biden, the Democrats, Mitch McConnell, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and 17 Senate Republicans want it that way. On the front lines, our communities along what used to be called the U.S.-Mexico border are being destroyed by rampant illegal immigration, the perverted sex trade, and illicit gun trafficking. A South Texas sheriff is asking for help today from law enforcement in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. He needs help to combat Washington, D.C.'s border crises. Sheriff Brad Coe says the residents of his county are unsafe, and schools are being protected by military barricades. Now, that's the life Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, John Cornyn, and the majority of Congress are willing to impose on all of us Americans. Now, what kind of politicians would do that to their own countrymen? Traitors would do that. Dumb people would do that. And that about covers the sum total of those responsible for our open borders. I mentioned dumb folks. Various members of the Democrat Party went on record blaming bigotry and your right of self-defense for the shooting in Los Angeles that left 11 people dead. When it turned out the shooter was a 72-year-old man named Who Can Tran, not a white supremacist, the leftist politicians went silent. But none of their voters called them out as being vacuous, moronic, and willing to score baseless political points over dead American bodies. And that's why these feckless and selfish politicians continue to be elected and to continue to plague our land, because the people don't rise up and let their voices and their votes be heard. Check out the left-wing extremist who runs California and his reaction to the shooting.
Nothing about this is surprising. Everything about this is infuriating.
California has the strictest gun laws in the U.S.
I mean, the Second Amendment's becoming a suicide pact.
Second Amendment. A suicide pact, says the leading candidate to challenge Joe Biden in the Democrat primary. Let's examine that, shall we? It has been well documented with an armed population, crime decreases. Your government, now committed to controlling you rather than keeping you free, has gone to considerable lengths to hide that fact from you. But the data doesn't lie. One recent example of this was during the China virus pandemic. Even left-leaning USA Today had to admit that rising gun ownership during the pandemic led to less crime. They reported that crime has significantly declined while the sale of firearms has risen over the past month in the United States. Both trends appear to result from the coronavirus pandemic, which has simultaneously raised the nation's anxiety while emptying its streets. Even more recently, in Brazil, the Bolsonaro government lifted gun restrictions there, allowing the people of Brazil to defend themselves from criminals. More legal guns reduced crime in Brazil as homicide rates fell 34% after Bolsonaro made firearms permits easier and cheaper to get. Now, you guys heard CBS note, the People's Republic of California has the strictest gun laws of any state in the union. Chicago has the strictest gun laws of any city in the union, and the murder rate and criminal gun violence in the city of Chicago off the charts. So in truth, our constitutional right to defend ourselves isn't a suicide pact, but voting Democrat is. Another reason I say that is because the Democrats are making alliances with others on the worldwide left with a goal of bringing down America's might, freedom, and prosperity. One of the freedoms they most desire to steal from us is our right to free speech.
Our message was clear. We have the rules which have to be complied with, and otherwise there will be sanctions. I think that the confidence has been weakened, and I had quite high level of confidence when it comes to Twitter. I have to say that we worked with knowledgeable people, with the lawyers, with the sociologists who understood that they have to behave. So this is what I don't feel from Elon Musk personally.
There's the latest Bond villain, folks, from the World Economic Forum, blasting Elon Musk for valuing free speech. The leftists in the EU, along with China and Democrats here in America, seek to quash any dissent. They seek to criminalize your disagreeing with them. They will punish you if you don't behave the way they say you should. Government force is one way to achieve their goal of unchallenged power. Another way is the culture war against the nuclear family and our children. GOP Governor Glenn Youngkin is furious today as leftists in his failed Gov-Ed system have done the unthinkable. Gov-Ed schools are accused of keeping students in the dark, not informing them that they achieved prestigious national merit recognition. Why? Because some of these students didn't fit Gov-Ed's equal outcomes agenda, or equity. Equity states that if you work hard, you should get the same compensation as those who are lazy and refuse to work. Communism. These students did very well on the SAT tests. That qualified 50,000 of 1.5 million high schoolers for the award that can help these students compete for scholarships, honors accolades, and college admissions. But in the name of equity, government administrators withheld notification that the students had achieved this amazing feat because the students didn't fit into the equity mold. In a spiteful move, some of these degenerates inside of these schools informed the students, hey, you qualified. But they did so after deadlines had passed so that the recognition wouldn't benefit those students. How sick does a person have to be to see a child work really hard and then achieve, and then in turn rob that child of opportunity because he or she doesn't fit into the left's preconceived woke equity model? Literally, Gov-Ed is working against academic excellence for your kids. In other words, Gov-Ed is more devoted to left-wing thought and extremism than the success of your kids. Now, that's fine, as long as taxpayers are not forced to fund that disgusting and un-American mindset. Parental school choice is a must, so parents can defund those who are actively working to harm our children. Speaking of harming kids, the cultural left has been imposing the use of these unscientific pronouns as part of their LGBTQ, ABCD, EFG cultural Marxist agenda. Now, some out there may view this as harmless and silly, an effort by the left to have something to complain about. Well, there's a darker agenda at work.
Hey Mom, one of my trans friends had such a hard time the other day.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What happened?
They kept getting misgendered at their family reunion.
Oh, that's so sad.
And they were actually misgendering them on purpose.
I bet that's going to happen to a lot of people over the holidays.
Yeah, that's why chosen family is so important.
They're always welcome on our server.
Okay, apparently Marxists in the Democrat Party have a server that is being marketed to your children. As you just saw, that clearly delusional child just referred to a woman who is not her mom as mom, in an effort to allow for a chosen family. The serpents on the left wing, in Gov-Ed and elsewhere, are whispering into your child's ear, if your parents decide to be parents instead of your pals and don't indulge your pronoun fantasies, we want you to know you can choose your family. History is replete with bloodthirsty dictators who work to separate children from their families, from Stalin to Pol Pot, to Francisco Franco, and yes, Adolf Hitler. through his Hitler Youth program, perverted and destroyed a generation of children just like the left-wing extremists are doing to your kids right now. You know, I get emails all the time. I don't understand what's happening to my country, they say. Well, that's why we highlight this stuff, so you know. And more folks had better figure it out, and soon. The enemies of man are playing for keeps. From Beijing to Washington, from Gov-Ed to the World Economic Forum, your freedom, faith, and family are the target. It's time we united to put up a defense.